Before Alex Eala hits a single ball at this US Open, the flags are already up, the chants have already started, and it has nothing to do with the match she just won. Because tucked inside the New York metro area, across Queens, Jersey City, parts of Long Island, the northern edge of Bergen County, lives one of the most overlooked communities in American sports. A Filipino diaspora hundreds of thousands strong, bigger than the population of many mid-sized American cities. And they didn't just arrive this month for a tennis tournament. They've been there for decades. They came with nursing licenses and engineering degrees. They came through family reunification visas and long overnight flights. They built homes, opened businesses, filled churches, and raised children who grew up eating Filipino food while watching American television. That community was there, established and real, long before Alex Eala ever picked up a racket. By the end of this video, I want you to see something most tennis coverage is getting completely backwards. This isn't really a story about a rising athlete building a fan base from nothing. It might be the opposite. And once you see the evidence laid out in order, I don't think you'll be able to watch her matches the same way again. Here's the claim I'm going to walk you through, piece by piece. What looks like a 21-year-old creating a movement might actually be a community that was already there, quietly, for generations, finally getting a reason to show up in the same place, on the same day, wearing the same colors. And there's a piece of evidence buried in all of this that, once you hear it, makes it very hard to see the story any other way. What happened to the woman who beat her in a final? Let's start with who she actually is, because the scale of what's happening around her only makes sense once you know where she came from. Alexandra Eala is 21 years old, left-handed, born in Quezon City, and she left home as a kid to train at the Rafael Nadal Academy in Mallorca, Spain, a program she's been part of since 2018, long before anyone outside serious tennis circles knew her name. 4 years she was exactly that, a name serious scouts quietly tracked, a promising junior who'd already won a US Open girls singles title back in 2022, grinding through qualifying rounds that rarely get seen by casual fans. Then, in 2025, she pulled off her first real signature upset, beating IGA Swiatek in straight sets at the Miami Open. A year later, in the summer of 2026, everything accelerated. On July 4th, at Wimbledon, she beat Swiatek again, this time the defending champion, on the same grass where Swiatek had lifted the trophy 12 months earlier, winning a first-set tiebreak that stretched to 11-9 before closing out the match to reach the fourth round. She became the first Filipino player, man or woman, to reach the second week of a Grand Slam. She'd eventually fall to Jasmine Paolini in a tight 3-set battle in the round of 16, but by then the story had already outgrown the scoreline. Then came August 3, 2026, a rain-delayed final at the Mubadala DC Open in Washington, where she beat world number 3 Jessica Pegula to become the first Filipino player ever, not the first woman, the first player, period, to win a WTA Tour singles title. She's since climbed to a career-high world number 18, the highest ranking and the highest Grand Slam seed any Filipino singles player has ever held, a jump from a ranking around number 49 at the start of the year. But here's the part that doesn't fit the normal script, and it's the detail I want you to really sit with. Before that Washington final even started, before she'd won a single tour-level title in her career, roughly 7,500 fans packed the stadium, overwhelmingly for her, facing a former world number 3 on the Americans' own home turf. Philippine flags everywhere, fans on their feet through every changeover. Tournament chairman Mark Ine said it plainly to reporters, over the month leading into the event, at least 80% of ticket inquiries, and by his own admission, probably closer to virtually all of them, were about one question: when is Alex Eala playing? That's remarkable considering the draw also included Naomi Osaka, Venus Williams, Madison Keys, and defending champion Leylah Fernandez. That kind of atmosphere doesn't build in a week. It doesn't build from one viral clip. It takes root over years, and it was already sitting there, waiting. Here's who's actually filling those stands. Families who came to the New York area, and to cities like it across North America, with nursing licenses and engineering degrees. People who arrived through family reunification visas, worked double shifts in hospitals and factories, built homes in Queens and Jersey City, filled churches on Long Island, raised kids on Filipino food and American television. That community, real, rooted, established, existed long before Eala ever picked up a racket. She didn't build that infrastructure. She didn't recruit those people one match at a time. She gave something that already existed a focal point. She's talked about this herself. Asked about playing in front of massive Filipino crowds, she said she doesn't have a home tournament of her own, so she's grateful fans have made her feel like she does. And after her Washington win, she described hearing from family and friends scattered across the globe, saying she already felt so much love that no matter what happened in that final, it already felt like a win. That's not a reaction to a trophy. That's a description of something that existed before the trophy ever mattered. Now here's the detail that I think proves the point better than anything else in this entire story. After Jessica Jessica Pegula lost that Washington final, she reportedly picked up a wave of new Filipino followers online, not because she won, but because she'd simply shared the court with Eala. Think about how unusual that actually is. In ordinary sports fandom, when your favorite player loses, you don't rush to follow the winner's supporters onto your own feed. You might respect the winner. You don't usually get absorbed into their community the same day. But this was never purely about who won a tennis match. It was about visibility, about a Filipina succeeding on a stage large enough for millions of people to witness. Being close to that moment, sharing the court with her, was enough to get pulled into its gravity. That's not celebrity fandom behavior. That's community behavior. It moves differently, and it spreads differently. You can watch the same pattern play out again in Toronto, just days after the Washington title. Tennis Canada scheduled Eala's opening match at the National Bank Open on the tournament's second court, a 2,800-seat venue. Tickets sold out in roughly half an hour. Organizers moved the match onto center court, a stadium several times the size, and that sold out too. One of the tournament's food vendors, the Changeover Kitchen, added chicken adobo to its concession stand, and days later followed it with pork lumpia, both explicitly described by the tournament's own executive chef as a tribute to the community filling the seats, not a marketing stunt. Tournaments don't rewrite their menus for one athlete. They rewrite them for a demographic that's already there in force, and the Greater Toronto Area is home to more than 200,000 people of Filipino descent, a number Toronto didn't create, it just happened to already contain. Naomi Osaka, who played in Toronto that same week, was asked about the scenes forming around Eala's matches. Her answer was simple: it's so cool, she's building a new community and fans around her. It's great for women's tennis and the tournament. And Eala herself, pressed on what it means to represent an entire diaspora, gave an answer that was almost the opposite of self-mythologizing. She said she's kind of just like a drop in the ocean when it comes to Filipinos and their pride in where they come from. None of this happened in a vacuum, either. Nike has leaned into it deliberately, and it's worth walking through exactly what's real here versus what's just noise online. At Wimbledon, in both 2025 and 2026, Eala wore a custom hair accessory built around the sampaguita, the national flower of the Philippines, a quiet tribute to where she's from, tied to a Filipino proverb about reaping what you sow. Ahead of this US Open, Nike released a full culturally themed kit, a royal blue and white dress priced at $140. Styled after the colors of the Philippine national basketball, football, and volleyball teams, plus a $42 signature t-shirt with her name and floral artwork stitched across the back. According to Heavy and TMZ, that shirt sold out within hours of release, while merchandise for some of Nike's much bigger name signed stars remained fully in stock on the same storefront. The US Open has officially described her as one of the tournament's biggest attractions this year and given her a spot in the pre-tournament stars of the Open exhibition on Arthur Ashe Stadium, alongside mixed doubles appearances with world number 4 Felix Auger-Aliassime, stage time that doesn't come with a single ranking point attached, and that a player seeded 17th doesn't normally get handed over players ranked inside the top 5. I do want to be straight with you on one specific point, because accuracy matters more here than hype. There's been a wave of online claims, and other videos, this week saying Nike has physically plastered billboards across New York City featuring her face. I looked for solid, sourced confirmation of that specific claim in credible reporting and couldn't find it. So take that one as an unverified rumor circulating alongside the real, confirmed campaign, not as an established fact. What is confirmed, and honestly just as telling on its own, is everything I just walked you through. The merch selling out ahead of bigger names, the tournament's own official promotion, the culturally specific kit built quietly around her heritage over 2 straight years. Now, it's worth being honest about something else too, because I don't want to oversell this story into something it isn't. None of what I've described guarantees anything on the court. Crowds can't serve for you. Flags don't hit backhands. Community love doesn't neutralize a world-class opponent trying to end your tournament on day one. Eala got a sharp reminder of that at the Cincinnati Open just before this US Open, where she carried a 5-match winning streak against top 10 opponents into a third-round match against world number 10 Amanda Anisimova, took the first set 6-4, dropped the second 4-6, then led the decided 2-0 before Anisimova reeled off 6 straight games to close it out 6-4, 4-6, 2-6, and end the run. Every tournament starts at 0, and she said as much herself, openly, without excuses. But here's the thing. The power of what's happening around her was never really tied to any single scoreline. It's tied to what her presence represents to a community that has rarely, if ever, gotten to see itself reflected on a stage this large. Outside of Manny Pacquiao in boxing, there hasn't really been a Filipino athlete with this kind of sustained, mainstream, global commercial visibility. And tennis, historically one of the hardest sports in the world for a country without deep court infrastructure or funding to break into at the elite level, made that scarcity even more pronounced. So when the draw comes out and Eala walks onto a court at Flushing Meadows this week, here's what I actually want you to be watching. Not just a rising athlete chasing a ranking, one more name climbing a leaderboard. A community that's been in Queens, in Jersey, on Long Island, and in cities like Washington and Toronto, for decades, that built its own infrastructure, its own churches, its own grocery stores, its own quiet sense of pride, long before any of this, finally getting a reason to gather in one place, at the same time, wearing the same colors. She didn't invent that community. She didn't build it match by match, the way we usually tell these stories about athletes earning a following one highlight at a time. She became the person it had been waiting for, someone to point at, on the biggest stage the sport offers, and say, that's one of us. If you want to keep tracking this story as it plays out through the rest of the US Open, the real numbers, the real reporting, no unverified rumors dressed up as fact, subscribe now, because I'm following this round by round. And I genuinely want to hear your take in the comments. Do you think this kind of diaspora-driven following can outlast a bad tournament, a slow season, an early exit, or does something like this need results to keep growing? Tell me where you land. See you in the next one.